As you may have just heard, this event is being recorded. A recording of this event will be made available to all Eventbrite registrants and Northwest EcoBuilding Guild members. Please try and keep your microphones muted during the presentations this evening. There will be time after each presentation for a quick Q&A session. So we welcome you to unmute, and if you feel comfortable turning on your camera, introducing yourself, and you're also welcome to post all questions in the chat as well that we can get answered for you. If you have any specific logistical questions or challenges, my email is on the screen. I'll be monitoring it all night tonight. We had a little bit of some technical difficulties starting out this evening, so let me know if that arises again. I'm happy to help and do some support and tech support on the back. And I'll go ahead and post my email in the chat as well, so you all have it. And happy to meet with any of you to talk more about the Northwest EcoBuilding Guild, our programs and events, and educational opportunities for you or your organization to get involved. Wonderful. So as I mentioned, the Northwest EcoBuilding Guild is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we are a member and sponsor-driven organization. Sponsors allow us the opportunity to make events like this happen. So I'd like to kick us off with some sponsor highlights this evening, and a huge thank you. We'll start with Pathway Design and Construction. Thank you so much to Pathway for your sponsorship. Pathway Design and Construction create beautiful, intelligently designed living spaces for discerning homeowners in the greater Puget Sound area. They were founded in 2008 and are now boasting a team with well over 100 years of combined experience of full service remodeling that uses sustainable, efficient processes and materials to craft healthy homes that enhance the lives of their clients. They're led by brothers Paul and Mike Kacharhook. Pathway is recognized as a certified builder by the Building Industry Association of Washington. And they are also featured in Home Builder Digest, Pro Remodeler, and others. They've also been recognized as a Guild Master with the highest distinction by the Guild Quality for Service Excellent. But more important than accolades, Pathway's mission ultimately extends beyond designing and building the places where folks live, work, and play. They believe they have the ability to protect our planet for future generations, both as professionals and individuals. Welcome, Pathway. Thank you so much for sponsoring this evening's event. Our next sponsor we'd like to highlight this evening is King County Green Tools. King County Green Tools has been a dedicated Guild sponsor for many years now. This program is designed to help all King County stakeholders green their built environment while addressing critical environmental issues such as global warming, habitat restoration, solid waste reduction, and community planning. Green Tools provides technical assistance, hands-on training, and policy development through community partnerships in public and private sectors. I will go ahead and link their website, and I welcome you all to check out their documents, resource pages, etc. on a variety of green building topics. Our next wonderful sponsor we'd like to thank and highlight this evening is 475 High Performance Building Supply. Another longtime Guild member and sponsor, 475 has a passion for building science, sustainable material use, and passive house for protecting the environment and making the world a better place. Consequently, 475's mission is to supply essential materials, building components, and knowledge that will lead a transformation of the North American construction industry toward a more durable, high-performance passive house and zero-energy buildings. They excel because they offer best-in-class products. They really are your one-stop shop for sustainable building products as well as education. They deliver products in a timely manner, and they support with intense attention to customer service, building code recommendations and compliance, and even hygrothermal modeling, as well as bountiful knowledge on resources and on-the-ground representatives. They're truly a wonderful organization. I welcome you all to check them out. And lastly, I'm super excited to announce we have our very own Todd Staheli with Rooftop Sustainable Solutions on tonight. Welcome, Todd. Rooftop Sustainable Solutions website. It's free to the community and is a resource for people to plan and prioritize home improvement, remodel, and lifestyle behavioral choices in order to live a more sustainably and lower their carbon footprint. Todd, I'll go ahead and pass it to you if you want to talk a little bit about your Earth Day relaunch and services offered, along with your dedicated page on green roofs. And I'll go ahead and also make you a co-host to allow for screen sharing abilities. But I'll stop sharing real quick and yeah, give you the floor.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Can you see my screen yet?
I can. We can also see your notes. So I'm not sure if you want to just have the big screen and notes or just the big screen.
Let me try that again.
Yeah, no problem.
See if I can get the right one this time.
Perfect. That looks great.
Yeah, I do have some notes. Anyway, I'm really excited to be here. My name's Todd Staley. I'm a longtime guild member, and I'm the founder of Rooftop. We're a small startup based out of Shoreline, Washington. I can happily say we just relaunched our website this past Monday, Earth Day. And to top it off, we formalized what I'm sure will be a win-win partnership with the Guild. You can explore the site by scanning the QR code or by going to rooftop.com. And as it says on the slide here, our audience is everyone. It's really wide-ranging. It's really includes everyone who cares about sustainability and wants to improve their home or the homes of their clients. The goals for the website are to help people identify and prioritize their
roofs tonight. Cool.
To remove the boundaries between content areas and to help untangle the complex topic of sustainability and to connect consumers with professionals. So the site is designed to help you discover actions, or we call them actions, tailored to your housing situation and goals across 16 content areas in our hubs. Begin by simply choosing your situation. In the top left, you see the orange area. Like remodel my home is shown here. This will lead you to an innovative tool which can help you to identify and prioritize your options so you can have a better, more sustainable home. And be sure to check out this month's blog post, Going Green for Less, where Sonia Auclair, our first team member, shares tips on how to embrace sustainability without breaking the bank. And also, I should mention, we are growing our team of dedicated content writers and would love to hear from you if you're interested. Yeah, the next slide, if I can go to that. One of our 64 actions is to install a green roof. So it's fitting with tonight's presentation. So there's a lot of information. I'm sure you'll hear a lot more tonight than we go in more detail tonight than we go into on the website, because the website covers kind of the full spectrum, the full breadth of sustainability. So we're really scratching the surface and count on the blogs and educational sessions such as this to really get into the really deep content. We're really happy to be a partner with the Guild. So thank you, Guild. And yeah, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you so much, Todd. Wonderful. And please feel free to post your contact information, and also I'll share the website as well in the chat. But yeah, thank you so much. Wonderful to hear the launch of your website. Congrats. It's really exciting and very timely with Earth Day. Great to hear. Can't wait to read that article by Sonia.
Yeah, I'll actually put the link to the newsletter in the chat too.
Perfect.
Put the link to a lot of stuff.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Awesome. That concludes our sponsor highlights. I'd love to announce some upcoming events that we are super excited for. Our first event that's coming up this Saturday, and we have John Kawaguchi on the line that will provide some more information in just a moment, is our Northwest Green Home Tour on April 27th. For our May education event, we'll be covering topics of indoor air quality in the age of climate change. For our June education event, we'll be understanding inclusive design, going beyond ADA, and looking at ways and strategies to ensure your next project is inclusive for potentially a client or folks that have differing abilities. And then July will be discussing and uncovering the housing crisis through talking about housing affordability solutions that actually work. And we have a couple wonderful guest speakers as well as speakers of several housing authorities that will be talking for that event. Wonderful. And having said that, if John Kawaguchi is on the line, I'd love to welcome John, who is managing and coordinating the upcoming wonderful Northwest Green Home Tour. John, take it away.
Hi, co-coordinating. I'm not doing it all by
Right.
myself.
Co-coordination.
There's a lot of volunteers that are involved. My name's John Kawaguchi. I've been a member of the Guild for about 3 years, and I've been helping coordinate the Green Home Tour for the last few years. The home tour is this weekend, and we're really excited to present 15 sites in the greater Seattle area, from Snohomish all the way down to Maple Valley and Tacoma. Maple Valley, by the way, is one of the sponsors' homes, Pathway. You can go to the site either by scanning the QR code or going to nwgreenhometour.org. I posted a link to the website in the chat where you can pre-register for tickets and also see a preview of all of the sites and get a map of all the locations so you can plan your day out. Make sure that you hit all of them before 5 o'clock. Thanks so much, and looking forward to seeing you out on the tour.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, John. Looking forward to it on Saturday.
Thanks, Nina.
Wonderful. And then I'll conclude with my announcements this evening with reminding everyone to check out the Northwest EcoBuilding Guild's membership program. Becoming a member for the Northwest EcoBuilding Guild supports events and programs such as the one tonight and the Northwest Green Home Tour. It also provides you access to on-demand webinars, trainings, and videos that we've recorded in the past. This is just a screenshot of some of the many education sessions we've done in the past, including energy code trainings, by incorporating biophilia design, passive cooling strategies. There's just such a labyrinth of information at your fingertips, and becoming a member will provide you full access to these wonderful webinars that you also can register for CE credits as well. There's also on-site tours, discounted pricing on all events, and you are also featured on our Green Pages directory. There are technical expert forums and, of course, a plethora of networking opportunities. So please consider becoming a member, and I'll post a link in the chat with more information. Yay! So I'm so excited. We finally are at our introduction for our speakers this evening. I am thrilled to welcome Dean Velasarian. Welcome this evening, Dean. Dean's passion for nature and the environment started early by spending countless hours alongside his grandfather, who is in forest management, as well as multitude of family backcountry camping trips. In his professional career, this passion continued through various sales roles in the natural and organic CPG industry. When he saw the opportunity to join the team at Nat's Nursery, he jumped and applied, ultimately being offered the live roof, green roof, and Permalock sales position in May 2022. After successfully completing his GRP certification in December of the same year, he was promoted to sales manager. And when asked in the interview process why he wanted to join the NATS team, he had to say, "I have always had a passion for nature and the environment. I have always wanted to get into horticulture. When I was not able to pursue that as a career, I found ways to channel those passions into something productive, and the organic industry provided me a way to still do better for people and the planet. When the opportunity with NATS came up, I couldn't pass it up. as this looked to be the perfect way to blend my sales skills and my passions for nature and the environment. Welcome, Dean. I'll also mention Noemi Morgan is the primary contact for Nat's Nursery, so I'll post her contact information in the chat as well to connect with her. So glad to have you, Dean. Welcome. And then our next speaker is John Alexander with Sunshine Construction. John Alexander is a fourth generation contractor and was a general contractor for the past 40 years. He is now working as a green building consultant. He has specialized in green building for the past 30 years and is one of the founders of the Northwest EcoBuilding Guild. He is passionate about green roofs and was involved in the Guild's green roof program in 2003, which installed 33 affordable residential green roofs in the Seattle area. Welcome, John. We're honored to have you as a speaker tonight and to share your green roof as a case study. Wonderful. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I'd like to welcome Dean. Dean, thank you so much for joining this evening. We're honored to have you, and yeah, we look forward to your presentation to kick us off tonight.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be joining and to be part of this wonderful event. As was mentioned, my colleague Naomi Morgan is our primary contact for the Washington and Oregon markets, and I myself look after BC and the Northern Canadian territories as well. So I got into green roofs about a little over 2 years ago now. And it has never ceases to amaze me, the innovations and creativity that this industry affords to anybody that would like to be part of it, really. So when it comes to green roofs, a lot of people think about just plants on a roof, a sod roof, those typical nostalgic images of the log cabin on the prairie with the prairie just kind of melding up onto the roof. It has evolved immensely since then, and I'll just briefly share a few slides that I have here of some projects around. There we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes, that looks good. It's not quite full screen. I don't know if you did want to do full screen, you can just click right at the top from beginning, but this also works as well.
There we go. I think I ended up with the wrong one view showing here as well. 1 sec.
You want a slice of pizza?
What? No, my tummy's a little.
All right.
I'm fine.
How are we going?
It is not one. It does not seem to want to cooperate with me, so we'll just work with it this way.
Yeah,
Try
this looks great.
Try hitting from beginning one more time. That might work.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Technology, wonderful when it works great.
Yeah, this works just fine. Thanks so much, Dean. Appreciate it.
So this is a photo of a project that we did about 8 years ago in Vancouver called Time on 43rd. This was a wonderful private residence tea garden that was created. And so you're not just limited, as you can see, to a flat surface. You can put a green roof on multi-dimensional roofs, and your imagination is really the limit. Also get into biodiversity. This was a project that was done up in Whistler, and in this project there are 13 different accent plants and 9 different sedum species. This is an example of a biodiverse green roof that was done with grasses, fragaria, and a variety of different sedums, bringing out the wonderful colors that are available. And you can have wonderful views. It doesn't have to be just up on an inaccessible rooftop. Here you can see it blending seamlessly into a wonderful rooftop deck. This was a project done in Deep Cove here in the Greater Vancouver area. This project was called the Cliffhanger and was down 150-foot cliff, and you actually had to use an inclined, almost like an elevator, to get up and down to the project. And here's an example of some more biodiverse green roofs. This is one that was done in Michigan. And this is a project that we have coming up. It's a rendering, and here it really encompasses the blending of nature into a building. We'll get into the rest of those slides momentarily. So when it comes to a green roof, really, what is a green roof? It's not just plants on a roof. You can really break it down into three primary aspects. You have an extensive, a semi-intensive, and an intensive green roof. Now, what are those? Well, an extensive green roof is a green roof with 4 inches or less of growing media and tends to be over large expanses. So think warehouses. The Ford factory in Michigan that had a 10+ acre green roof only has about 2 inches of growing media. You've got fairly limited plant materials that you can use there, but it gives that great benefit, helps with heat island, urban heat island effect, stormwater management, etc. Then you get into your semi-intensive. This is where probably the majority of green roofs fall, especially for those in residential application. And there you have between 4 and 8 inches of growing media. You can get into a little bit more biodiversity, really helping to support local ecology, wildlife corridors, habitat restoration and supplementation, quite a wide variety. And then you get into your intensive, and this is intensive is where you have 8 inches or greater growing media depth. And that is where you can really get into your extremely biodiverse green roofs, where you have trees and bushes, and you have rooftop gardening for vegetables. And that's where you can really get into your most extensive variety of possibilities. From there, you can go into quite a few different directions. If you want to keep it fairly simple using sedums, you can go that direction. You can go with like a prairie meadow on your rooftop. Really, the creativity that you bring to the table as a homeowner, as a project owner or developer is really the limit. It can very much be adapted. There are a lot of different technical aspects that go into a green roof, and we'll touch on those here now. When you get into a green roof, you're really going to have 2 primary makeups or buildups of your green roof and the total roof structure. We'll see here. Oh, why is this not working again? As you can tell, I'm a lot more comfortable with plants than I am with technology. So please bear with me. Just skip through. So here is what is referred to as a protected membrane roof assembly. So this is where you're going to have your insulation on the exterior of the structure. Quite often used where you're going to have architectural features such as beams and vaulted lofted ceilings and such on the interior. So you don't want to have that necessarily taken up with your insulation and your drywall and such. You really want to have those architectural features stand out. So you would have your roof structure, as you can see, and then you get into your primary membrane. a root barrier, then you get your insulation, a filter layer, drainage layer, and then you get into your growing media and your vegetation. One of the benefits of this type of a system is you don't have to worry about condensation, potential condensation and such that can happen, because you've got the insulation that, especially over a concrete structure, is insulating and stabilizing the temperature of the structure, so you don't get that that condensation that can happen. The other main style is a conventional roof assembly. So this is what most residential homes and a lot of older buildings have. And this is where your insulation is on the interior of a building, or it is sandwiched between cover boards, creating sort of a multi-layer exterior. Used over top of your either your roof structure, or in this case, for this diagram, your cover board. You would then have your membrane over top of that, a root barrier, and then your other layers such as your drainage layer, filter cloth, growing media, and your vegetation.
Hey, Dean,
yeah.
I think we're actually currently seeing the slide with the half sort of the bowed roof. And
Oh,
I'm
is it not?
curious if you mind clicking to that slide that you were on with the structure. I think slide 8 or 9 is probably where you're at right now.
There, can you see?
Yep. Thank you
There?
so much.
Okay.
Yeah, that looks great. Thanks.
Apologies. Again,
No
technology is
worries.
not my greatest strong
No
point.
problem. Thanks so much.
So this is your protected membrane roof assembly. And then we have your conventional roof assembly. So simple, but complicated at the same time. But it's not something that is beyond the average person to take on. But there are definitely structural aspects that you need to take into consideration. When you're building a green roof, you can have hundreds, if not thousands of pounds up on your roof. So you really need to ensure that your structure can support that. You want to make sure that you're working with an engineer and or an architect to ensure, if you're doing a retrofit especially, that those weights are being taken into consideration. If you're doing a new build, that's a great time right at the very beginning to ensure that everything is designed to maximize the benefits of your green roof, which are very wide ranging. Some of the big ones are urban heat island effect, stormwater management, as well as home energy efficiency. So with urban heat island effect, as we've developed and grown our urban scapes, there's a lot of concrete. There's a lot of black asphalt and things of that nature. Those all absorb heat and hold on to that heat. And that just continues to accumulate and multiply over multiple days, resulting in situations like we had here in Vancouver or British Columbia for the most part a couple of years ago with the heat dome, where we had hundreds of people all across the Pacific Northwest that died because of the heat. Those kinds of heats are really exacerbated in an urban setting, especially with more and more air conditioners being used. Not only do they use quite a bit of electricity, the heat from in your building is just being vented outside, adding to that. With a green roof, that can help to break up that hard surface, the surfaces that are going to be absorbing the heat. Through evapotranspiration, which is the evaporation of water through plant material and organic matter, you can achieve some cooling and minimize the amount of heat gain that can enter into your building through the roof and then transmit into your building. So it can help to reduce your cooling costs in the summertime, but it can also help to reduce your heating costs in the winter. If you think of it as a quilt or a blanket that you put over top of your building, the growing media helps to stabilize your temperature within the roof structure, minimizing the amount of heat that is lost by adding that that buffer, and therefore helping to keep your home at a more stable temperature and reduce the amount of energy that you're using. When it comes to stormwater management, that can really vary quite a bit. It's one area that a lot of municipalities and counties are emphasizing more about. They are mandating in some areas that green roofs be included, or that stormwater management aspects be included as part of the building. And this is to help minimize the amount of combined outflow that happens from water treatment plants, which is when essentially raw untreated sewage is discharged into the environment because the water treatment facilities are beyond their capacity. And this is becoming a bigger and bigger issue as we pave over more and more areas. We're creating impermeable surfaces, and all of that water is just simply shed straight off and right into the storm sewers and creating these issues. Here in Vancouver, through Rain City Strategy by the City of Vancouver, that is becoming a major aspect. Roads and infrastructure are being redesigned to have rainwater infiltration pathways down centers of roads, really helping to allow that water to get back into the water table and not just get shed off. And that is one way that we can really help to reduce our impact on the environment. We're not drawing out extra water that isn't being replaced as nature has generally intended. The way a green roof can help with that is your growing media essentially acts as a delay switch for stormwater. When you have a large storm event that comes through, the rain falls on the roof. Typically, in a typical roof, is just going to shed straight off into the gutters and into the storm sewers. With a green roof, it can delay it anywhere from 6 to 18 hours before a single drop of that rainwater exits out the bottom of your green roof and then can exit into your storm drains. And this becomes really important for managing stormwater because it helps to delay the influx of all of that water into your sewer system, minimizing those combined outflow events. The other thing that you can do as well is make use of that rainwater. You can combine your green roof with a cistern or a reservoir type item that you can put underneath your green roof, and you make use of that water before it even gets into the environment. You reuse it on site. And these are all things that factor in when you're thinking about wanting to do your green roof. And then when it comes down to that growing media, it's not just soil that we've dug up from the yard and put it up on the roof, or from the field in the case of a nursery or something of that nature. These are very highly engineered soils. One of the main guiding principles that are used is the German FFL granulometric profile, which dictates the amount of organic content as well as the makeup of the soil, from your small sand-like particles to gravels and that kind of thing. And most of them by standard are going to have 10% organic content or less. And that it helps to ensure that that is going to hold its structure, and you're not going to have to continually add to your green roof, because to continually add, you're going to be increasing the weight, increasing potential challenges with structure and such. That growing media can also, depending on the ingredients in your growing media, can help to increase the stormwater management capabilities of a green roof soil. Some companies will use things like a pumice in order to provide the lightweight bulk to a growing media. Some will use things like expanded shale or clay, crushed brick, all things that are porous. And so they can hold on to quite a bit of moisture, but all of those air spaces also help to keep them in general lighter and minimizing those inputs that you're going to have to do for your structure, whether that be a retrofit or if that be a new build. Then from once you have your more or less structure designed, then you have to decide the type of green roof that you want to do. And you're really going to run into three main types of green roofs. You're going to have a plant in place green roof. You're going to have a sedum mat or some type of mat system, or you have a modular system. The system that NATS uses and that we feature is a modular hybrid system, which really brings together the benefits of both. You have the whimsical free-form design aspects that you can get with a plant in place, but you have the ease of installation with something like a modular system that already comes ready to go. You just have to basically set it down on the roof. And those are aspects that you have to take into consideration, and that will affect the cost. A green roof isn't necessarily a cheap thing, and you don't want to necessarily go for the cheapest option because it will likely run into challenges. Your most important aspect is going to be your membrane. That membrane is really that seals your building envelope, and that's what's going to protect your structure from anything that is happening externally. And so if you want to have the most durable and long lasting, make sure that you don't skimp out on your membranes. It can be easy to do. There's lots of different options out there, whether you use something like a 2-ply SBS torch-on membrane, or you go with something like a rubber, like an EPDM membrane. They all have their features and their benefits. Some like PVC can act as your root barrier as well, so you don't have to use as many different products. Or if you're doing a smaller project, maybe something like an EPDM rubber might be more applicable. You can often find it at home building centers and landscape supply stores sold as pre-cut pond liners. So for a DIY homeowner, that can sometimes be an easy way to go. But you want to make sure that you're doing your research, because something like an EPDM rubber, while it's great, it's flexible, it's easy to find, if you're going with more than 4 inches of growing media, you're going to need to have some sort of a root barrier because it does not have the structure and stability to act as a root barrier for greater growing media depths or larger plant material. And that's one thing you have to also take into consideration is your plants. You don't want to have something like a willow or a cottonwood growing on your roof, because those woody, fibrous, hard roots will find their way down, as they always do. They follow the path of least resistance, and they'll find little cracks, imperfections, weak points, and that can create issues. So it's not just a simple matter of putting any kind of plant material up. You really have to think about it. And it's one of the reasons why things like sedums are such a popular item. They don't have aggressive roots. They don't need a lot of water. They don't need a whole lot of care and attention. They're not maintenance free, but they are very low maintenance. So it makes it an ideal plant material. It evolved and grows in nature in small rocky outcrops and areas with very little or poor soil. So it makes it for a very resilient plant material to have. But it can be simple. It's going to generally kind of be more lower growing in height. You won't have as much texture difference. And so that's where you can get creative, and you can add in accent plants. You can create designs. You can break it up and include small patio areas or walkways. Lots of different aspects that you can do to really maximize the use of your green roof. It's not just there for function. You want to actually be able to enjoy it as well. So you can be as whimsical as you want when you're doing it. All sorts of different plant materials that you can go with. You can, depending on the growing media depth, you can get some things like asters, which can grow 4 and 5 feet tall, or you can have small shrubbery and such as like a kinnikinick or a salal, both plant material that are native to the Pacific Northwest. They produce fruit and berries, so they can help with providing food and habitat space for wildlife, but they provide wonderful year-round interest on your roof and great texture. So you can really get more sort of three-dimensional forms within your green roof and not just a flat plane of green. And think about the uses that you want to have with your green roof. There was a project that we did up in northern Vancouver Island for a doctor there. And when he's not in the hospital and tending to those high stress situations and urgent care calls, he wants to be able to kind of wind down. And so he built his green roof on his home, overlooking the mountains and the ocean, and created a small little deck space where he can set up a small chair or his meditation pillow and really enjoy the environment and take in that wonderful sereneness. One of the great things about green roofs is their versatility. One thing that I didn't mention that green roofs can have a benefit for is with biophilic design. The inclusion of nature within your structure and your urban scape and designs. And there's been multiple studies that have been done around hospitals, and patients in hospitals with a room that overlooks a green space, a garden, a park area, or a green roof. Those patients tend to recover and heal quicker, use less medication, and generally have a more positive outlook compared with patients with almost the exact same challenges in a room that doesn't overlook a green space, just overlooks rooftop air conditioning units or just your general building scape. So it can make a lot of difference, and it's not just a one size fits all. There are a lot of aspects to it, and it can be included in almost any design, any building, any structure, depending on the uses or the purpose behind it. Things that you need to take into consideration when you're building a green roof is keeping in mind that you might only be 10 or 20 feet above the ground for a residential, or you might be 40 or 50 stories up in the air for a large multifamily development. Those are going to pose different challenges. Once you get above the ground level, your conditions become a lot more severe. You have far less shading. You can have much higher wind loads. All of those things are going to have an effect on your green roof and affect the design. When you're dealing with your exposures, you need to think about whether you're south facing, west, east, north facing. Those are all going to have effects on the type of plant material that are going to be able to be included, the amount of irrigation that you might need, and even the depth of soil that you may need in order to achieve that insulating effect for energy saving aspects. You can't just put any kind of a plant. You need to take into account the kind of climate and environment that those plants are going to need. Things like ferns and mosses, which can be included as part of your green roof, those are really going to thrive more in your shaded areas. Whereas things like woolly sunflowers and other succulents, those are going to be much more appreciative of a south-facing and harsh environment. And so you can have a lot of creativity. Take a look at your site, look at and take into account some of those different aspects, and really work with your designer, work with the environment, work with those professionals that can really help in guiding you in the right direction. One thing that a lot of that I touched on earlier, a lot of people have the misnomer of is that a green roof is kind of a set it and forget it kind of thing. You let nature take its course. It's not that simple. As I said, there's not really any such thing as a no maintenance green roof, but there are low maintenance green roofs. And that's the other aspect to take into consideration is your maintenance. A much more biodiverse green roof is probably going to take more maintenance. It's probably going to take more irrigation, more care and attention. But the benefits that you can get, depending on your goals, can be 10, 20-fold, and it just multiplies. If you're wanting something that's going to be really, really low maintenance, maybe you don't have a ton of irrigation available because of water restrictions, well constraints, or a variety of different aspects. In that case, you're probably going to want to go with something a lot simpler. Definitely avoid things like grasses. They may look beautiful, but they have one of the highest water requirements of any plant material. So you want to take those kinds of things into consideration as well. When it comes to the uses of a green roof, up until fairly recently, there was a big debate back and forth as to whether, do I do a green roof? Do I do solar and solar hot water on my roof? Can I do both? And the typical reaction was, no, you really have to, it's either one or the other, because solar panels and such tended to be mounted with a low profile to the roof. So there was not much sunlight, not much rain or water that could get underneath. But it's ironic, solar panels actually lose efficiency the warmer they get, which you would think wouldn't be the case because they're meant to be out in the sun. They're dark, they're black. How could heat be an issue? But in studies that have been done, when you combine your green roof and solar, one, you increase the resiliency of your green roof because you're now protecting it from some of the harshest aspects of the rooftop environment. But the cooling effects of that green roof actually increase the efficiency of your solar panels. It can increase that efficiency anywhere from 1 to 7%. Some studies have even shown greater than that. And it's one of those areas where it's no longer a one or the other. But you want to think about it, because every time that you penetrate your waterproof membrane to put on a bracket for a green roof or something of that nature, those are possibilities of a potential leak. And so you want to keep your penetrations to a minimum. And one great way of doing that is through something like a ballasted green roof, where you're using the actual weight of your green roof to hold your solar panels in place. And those are all things that will also factor into your cost. A green roof could range anywhere from $15 a square foot up to, for your far deeper growing media and biodiverse, you could be looking at $70 to $80+ a square foot, depending on what you're wanting to do. And so that's something that you want to take into consideration when designing it as well, is what are your goals? Do you want to include solar? What are your costs? What is your budget? And that the budget will be something that will influence it, but you don't want to endlessly focus on keeping your budget as minimal as possible, because that often is going to lead to having to make compromised choices to potential materials used. And so it's something you want to think about from beginning to end. And remember, your green roof could potentially last as long as 60, 70 years. And it's one of the ways that you can reduce your carbon intensity. With a green roof with plant material, it's going to be absorbing carbon from the environment. The larger and more diverse your plant material, the more carbon that it can sequester. Something like a sedum-only green roof it's going to help somewhat, but it's going to be minimal. But if you're doing a incredibly biodiverse green roof with 18 inches of growing media and you've got shrubs and potentially trees, you've got a lot of potential carbon offset and carbon sequestration that can happen. One of the benefits of having a green roof is your membranes, they typically have a lifespan of, depending on the material, from 10 to 25 or 30 years. When you put a green roof over top of those membranes, you're now doubling, tripling, potentially even more than that, the lifespan of your membrane. So you're reducing the amount of waste and materials that are going to be going into the landfill, or that you're going to have to try and find alternate recycling options for. And that's something that you can take into consideration when you're thinking about the cost. Okay, it might seem fairly expensive. What is the overall lifespan cost? If you have a traditional shingle roof, you're probably going to have to replace those shingles every 20 years or so. So if you look at 60-year span, you're going to have to replace all of that 3 times. What's the cost of doing that? Now factor that in when you're comparing your green roof. It's going to be an investment for a longer period of time. And so it may seem expensive on the upfront, but when you look at the lifespan cost, it really starts to come down. The green, see a question here with the green roof that's behind me. Yes, this is a biodiverse one. So here the green roof, you can see the modules right in the front where it's kind of a yellowish color. Those are some sedum only modules. And then in behind, those are modules that have a mixture of different wildflowers in them. There is some woolly sunflowers, some asters. There are also some crocus bulbs in there. And it really emphasizes the diversity you can go with. It looks fairly simple, but this is taken from a bit of more of an elevated view. If you were to look at this more like if it was out your kitchen window and you were looking out over it, you really get to see the diversity, the texture. This green roof ranged from about 4 inches in some of the sedum only areas up to 24 to 36 inches actually with some of the asters when they're in full bloom. So there's really a curve to the evolution of your green roof. It's not going to be the same every single year. You have to remember it's a living thing. It's going to be constantly evolving from year to year. So it always is going to have something new, something interesting to look at, to take into consideration. When you're dealing with your maintenance, it's an incredibly, incredibly crucial part of keeping your green roof. And it is an aspect that you need to make sure that you factor in. If you're doing a large multifamily development, is this going to be strata operated, or how is it going to be looked after? Are you making sure that in your contract for your installation, are you including things like maintenance? Because it is very important. If you don't do your maintenance, you can have things like weeds and blackberries and alders and cottonwoods and maples and all sorts of things that can make your way into a green roof. There was a green roof done here in Vancouver, in the Kitsilano area of Vancouver, right off of English Bay. Beautiful home, beautiful green roof. It wasn't terribly accessible. It was a true roof at the very top of the building. The homeowners had the assumption that he didn't really need to do anything. Well, after 15 years of owning this home, they went to put it on the market, and they had an inspector come by, and lo and behold, they had a 11-foot tall alder growing in their green roof. And when they went to pull it out, there were 15 feet of roots that had made their way into the roof drain because the roof drain had just been covered over. Thankfully, they got it out before it had caused any damage, but something like that could crack those pipes, could create issues. that are then going to amplify and become greater and greater the longer it's left. And that's why maintenance is really important. You don't necessarily have to be up there every single day on your hands and knees searching for every little weed, but you do want to be going up regularly. As general practice, it's generally recommended to go up and walk your green roof every couple of weeks. That gives you the opportunity to break the life cycle of weeds before they have a chance to set flower and go to seed and multiply exponentially the problem. You can get them young, you can get them early, and you can get them before they have a chance to continue to spread. And that's something you want to take into another aspect to take into account when you're thinking about doing a green roof and the type of green roof that you want to do. If you're doing something like a built up and plant in place green roof, you're essentially building a gigantic planter box on your roof filled with a growing media, and then you go and you put small plants in with the intention that over time they're going to grow, provide that coverage, and provide that that density of plant life on your roof. But that's going to take a couple of years. You're going to have growing media that's going to be exposed for a while. While that's exposed, those are going to be prime areas where weed seeds can blow in, be carried in by birds, etc. And so you're going to want to do your maintenance and your weed checks more frequently. As those plants mature and you reach that maximum coverage, 100% growing media coverage, then you're going to have less opportunity, less chances for weeds to infiltrate and make their way in. And the earlier you catch it, the smaller the problem. A maintenance person that I worked with, he used to always say, the smaller the weed, the smaller the problem. The bigger weed, the bigger the problem. The bigger the problem, the more expensive the solution. So they're all aspects that play hand in hand. You want to think of it as part of your family. It's going to need care and attention regularly, just as your kids and your pets need care and attention regularly. You want to provide your green roof with care and attention regularly, and have fun with it. That's one of the biggest aspects, is have fun. It's supposed to be an area that you can enjoy, an extra part of your home. If you're an architect or a designer and you're creating amenity spaces, why not put in something like a green roof with some amenity deck spaces and such? You're only increasing the value of the building as a whole, but you're also increasing the enrichment opportunities to the residents as well. As we continue to build up our urban environments, green spaces are becoming harder and harder to come by. And by including something like this in your development, your home, an industrial complex, a warehouse, you're helping to improve the environment, both ecologically, but also for those that are inhabiting that environment, whether that be people or animals. It's an area where we can really blend together and reconnect.
Thank you so much, Dean. That was fantastic. Appreciate your conversation, and that was fascinating on the interconnection between solar panels and green roofs. I'll have to mention that to some of the architects I work with. I'd love to move on to if any folks have any questions for Dean before we get to our next speaker in regards to the information he shared with us this evening on green roofs. Does anyone have any questions for Dean? And feel free to post in the chat, or if you're feeling comfortable, you can unmute yourself, and even more comfortable, we'd love to say hello, and you can turn on your camera. Any questions for Dean? Maybe as folks are thinking, I had one that did pop in my mind, Dean. You had
Yes.
mentioned that the most carbon sequestration occurs when there is a diversity of species. So rather than one species more than the other, I'm curious though, in that diversity, are there species of sedums and or shrubberies and or even moss? I've seen several moss be used for green roof applications that have a greater impact on the carbon sequestration, or is it that diversity piece that speaks to that?
When you're dealing with a green roof and carbon sequestration, the greatest amount of carbon that can be sequestered is going to be dictated by the amount of vegetative growth. That is where your carbon is primarily sequestered. But one area that is often overlooked, and it's something that we work very hard with on the live roof, for example, is we use mycorrhizal inoculations. That mycorrhizal network within the soil can exponentially multiply the amount of carbon that can be sequestered. Obviously, the greater the growing media depth, the more room you will have for that bio activity, and therefore the greater amount of carbon that can be sequestered. Your typical green roof that is going to be 4 to 6 inches in depth, and usually it's going to be mostly sedums with a few accents geared towards being low maintenance. It's going to have some effect on carbon sequestration for sure, but it's not going to be as effective as planting a city block worth of trees that are going to be there for 60, 80 years with a lot of vegetative mass. That is where you're going to have most of that carbon. But it is something that is, every little bit counts. And the more green roofs we do, the more that we can start to offset that, and the sort of follow along that comes with that is you're reducing your energy usage, energy intensity, and therefore if your electricity and energy is coming from fossil fuels such as coal, gas, oil, or other methods, you're minimizing the amount of those resources that you're using to maintain your building, whether that be heating or cooling or any other aspect that you may be doing in the home. And that can have a huge cumulative effect.
Hey, Dean. On that point, my name's Keenan, by the way.
Sorry, there we are.
I was curious. So recently here in Thurston County, and I think Greater Washington, we've had a change in energy code.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a contractor locally here in Olympia, and I'm curious to see. And I missed the first 30 minutes of your talk, but I'm obviously adding that mass atop the roof is going to add an R value of a certain degree. Is that something that you have been able to convince a county and or city when it comes to permits in regards to that, like, contributing to an R value of a home?
It's an area that we're constantly working on. Unfortunately, at the moment, there are not a lot of studies that have been done around the specific R value of growing media. Some of the things that can factor into that is how saturated it is, because obviously a fully saturated green roof, just like a fully saturated sponge, is not necessarily going to be able to provide the same kind of R value as like a lofted down comforter would be able to. So it's something that is being worked on, but there aren't any solid answers. There was one study, it was a small study done, and it was saying something in the range of 1.5 R value per inch of growing media.
Wow.
So there are definitely aspects to it, but it is something that a lot more study needs to be done to determine a more consistent across the board aspect. Right now, there's a lot of things that factor into it. If you're doing a retrofit, you're not necessarily going to have the same kind of insulation that you can put in to a new build. If you're doing a hybrid roofing system where you have insulation both on the inside of the building and the outside of the building, so you've got sort of a protected membrane and a conventional building, you're going to have exponentially greater amounts of insulation. If you have a vented roof structure where you have your primary roof decking, an airspace or air gap, an exterior sheathing, and then a green roof over top of that on a slight slope, that's going to have far more insulating effect to the building structure versus a green roof that is just put directly over a membrane right on a roof structure.
I see. That's fascinating. I mean, that's kind of I'm just so curious about like, well, not for it to be political, but I feel like sometimes we don't utilize these things that are innately, we're trying to decrease our impact on the planet, and that's why these regulations come into play. And having something that is sequestering carbon seems like could be valued as a small dwelling residentially. I could be a point, towards that 5 point. I would be. Have you guys, like, I mean, are you local or in Washington, or are you guys?
Nat's Nursery is based in Langley, BC, Canada.
Okay.
But we do service the Washington and Oregon markets. Our nursery is literally about 10 minutes north of the border. So we really are in the exact same backyard, just on the opposite side of fence.
Right. Well, thank you.
And I would welcome working with anybody that would be interested in trying to work on some studies around things like insulation effects and such. It's something that we're always looking to develop more data around, because that's the biggest aspect, is your data.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, preferably we're using products and mechanisms like a green roof over using, a synthetic insulation material, or even water heaters and or HVAC systems that not necessarily been studied well enough to properly give that information that can provide a greener home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Great question, Keenan. I just wanted to mention, I posted Noemi Morgan's contact information in the chat, as she is the U.S. liaison for Nat's Nursery, for more information and if you want to get in touch. There are a couple more questions in the chat, Dean, but I might have you maybe answer them in the chat. I want to get some time for our next speaker, but I just want to thank you again so much, Dean. There will also be a Q&A after John Alexander's presentation, so if you're available to stick around, and if folks have a couple more lingering questions, we'd love to have you on. And thanks all for some really awesome questions in the chat, and for bringing those up. Without further ado, John Alexander, I'll go ahead and give you the floor. And we're so excited to have you as a speaker this evening. Thank you so much for sharing your green roof as a case study. Super excited. Awesome. And I think you're still.
There it is. Hey, okay. I got my on mute going. Very good. First of all, Dean, thank you so much for your presentation. That was just excellent. I so appreciate what you and your colleagues at your nursery are doing with green roofs. It's awesome. You've taken it a long ways. I'm going to be presenting about the green roof that I have. Literally, I'm in my home office, which is in my garage. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Go back. Oh, there it is. And my green roof is on my garage, and it's directly above my head where I'm speaking from right now. I have a skylight over my desk, and it's just all around that. And if I remember, before it gets dark, maybe about 10-15 minutes from now, I'll take my phone up there and we'll broadcast live and give you a quick show round up there. This green roof that I did, this is on we're on we live on a slope, and we look down on the roof of this garage. The garage roof is flat. The roof surface is about 900 square feet. And previously it was amazingly ugly. And now this is what, this picture is what it looked like a couple years after first planning it out. Not too shabby. I just want to go quickly through the medians. Dean did that, but the slides weren't quite there. You know, the vegetation on there, this growing medium, which is we call the soil. The drain mat is very important for having good drainage in the system. You got to have something, and what we use is something very similar to what we use on concrete walls, to have a kind of like a drain plane in there, so basements don't leak. Insulation is not something we have in this system, but something easily could be done. We used a root barrier on this one, and then a roofing membrane, and you'll see pictures of all those things. And so this is a picture of my roof before it became a green roof, and I actually remodeled the garage to some degree, so it's more attractive than it was back in 2002 or whenever this was taken. So it was an eyesore to look down on. So I want to go quickly through the advantages and disadvantages or challenges of a green roof. Advantages: it reduces the what got me initially very interested in green roofs was I heard a talk by a salmon specialist dealing with watershed issues in the urban environment. And what they said, in the urban environment, for our endangered species of salmon that we have in the Seattle area and Western Washington and probably lower BC as well, is that you can't have more than 10% of a watershed being impervious surface. So when you do that in a dense urban area, you almost have to have green roofs or have some kind of rainwater storage to succeed with that. So I did this really because the salmon issue was such a big issue 20-some years ago. Insulation values, Dean covered that all very well. Sound, when I'm in my office, I have really good ceiling insulation, but there can be like sirens going by in the street and I can't hear them. It's super, super quiet in here. They can be very beautiful. They change throughout the season. And I'll be showing you pictures from other stages in the green roof, as well as pictures I've taken the last few days as well. Increased longevity, Dean covered that, you know, and the issue is that roof membranes last much longer than normal roof membranes, significantly longer, because there's no UV light going to them. And that reduces the long-term costs, as well as by doing that, reduces the long-term carbon impact of roofing. If you don't have to re-roof every 20 years, you only have to re-roof every 40 or 60 or 80 years, that's a lot less materials being used, which is very advantageous. The plants on green roofs help filter the air. One of the things I really love about green roofs is that it takes a dead space and makes it into a live space. And I love the mountains, and I love plants and gardens and things like that. And this opportunity as a longtime general contractor to mix the plant and the living world with the built environment is something that I'm very passionate about and really was attracted to heavily. In urban areas, it can reduce the heat island effect, keeps buildings keep cool through evaporation, shading, insulation. And Dean covered the carbon reduction. And one of the carbon reduction, especially in larger commercial projects, is it reduces the need for storage, stormwater storage, which is a big issue. And sometimes stormwater storage is using large concrete pipes, which are incredibly high in embodied carbon. So green roofs in that respect can make a big difference in carbon consumption in that way. But really, if in an average residential green roof situation, or when you're discussing that as a possibility, if your highest driver, your highest possibility is to have as little embodied and consumed carbon as possible, out-invest the money instead of a green roof into more insulation and having someone come do a blower door test and make your house more tighter and more efficiency, and maybe some solar panels as well. I think that's where you get the best bang for your buck. But on a larger scale with lots and lots of green roofs, it does make a good difference, and it is a good thing. Challenges of green roofs? Well, if you have a goat on your roof, that might be a challenge. And I often think, I like what Dean said. I think a lot about it is, you know, if you're going to have a green roof, have fun with it. And one of my dreams that I haven't got around to is having a cutout out of a goat posted up on the edge of the roof that people can see from the street, that with a motion detector light will go on at night with a little sound effect from the goats going at the same time. When you have your own green roof, you amuse yourself with different ideas of things to do with it, for sure, or at least I have. There's the increased weight load, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Maintenance, when I first installed the green roof, maintenance was for this 900 square feet, I put about 10 minutes per month into it. And since then, it's become a little more, it changes continually depending on the season. Every year there's new plants coming, and the diversity of plants go up there, change quite a bit of ability. And the other challenge is adapting to the change, adapting to the new plants that happen up there, some of the invasive plants up in there, some of the critters that go up there, adapting to the climate. The first sedums that bloomed every year always were in June. Now they're in early May, late April. So the climate's changed in 21 years in my backyard, at least, from an in-depth study of one roof. For the structural changes for the roof, part of the process is I went to Chris Webb, who's an ex-Guild board member and an environmental engineer, and he came up with a structural plan to how to make this garage deal with that additional weight. And with the green roof rate, like any structural, you're dealing with a live load and a dead load. And the maximum live load is when the water, the soil medium is completely saturated. That's the most water that we calculate for, or having a snow load on it, which isn't super common. So what we came up with, supplemented with volunteers that helped from the Guild do this, including, thank you very much, Tom Balderson helped put in one of the beams for it. He was a great help with it one day. We put in a 3.5 by 15-inch PSL over the large 2-car garage door. That helped a lot. We put a 4 by 12 Doug fir beam over the center of the midspan of the rafters with a post in the center. And the rafters are a true 2 or 2.25 inch by 13.5 inches of Doug fir, original rafters, of course. In the back part of the east part of the garage roof, where my office currently is, there are 2 by 6 rafters, and he had us double that up. And then the siding, we had to remove the siding on all 4 corners to allow for a 4 by 8 sheet of plywood shear walls with hold down Simpson HD8s on each end of each of the pieces of plywood, each side of the corners. And in all the earthquakes we've had in 21 years, it's worked quite well. Actually, we haven't had any, but hopefully it worked quite well. So we're doing this as the first project of the EcoBuilding, the Seattle chapter of the EcoBuilding Guild's effort to take commercial green building technology into the residential sector and make it affordable. In other words, do it on the cheap. And our budget for doing this whole project was also limited, we'll say. So for this particular roof, we got a donation from a roofing company of doing a hot tar roof. And so we did a hot tar roof, and my neighbors came around and asked, what are we doing? I told them we're doing a green roof, and they said, this is green because it smelled horrible for at least a block away. Now I'd never do a hot tar roof again. It was but it's lasted and worked really well. And I feel badly for the workers that work with hot tar roofs. And then we put down the root membrane, which was really just a special plastic membrane, not so expensive. But the idea is plants and trees with tap roots can go into the roof and damage it. And we're really concerned about that. And so you can see in this picture the big leaf maple that hovers over the east side of the roof. And that big leaf maple is just loaded with little whirlybird maple seeds that drop down this roof. And that's been a big problem, particularly a big problem in the beginning. And one of my adaptations to that early on was I got the idea of putting a big branch going from the ground up to the roof, and then squirrels in their natural tendency to explore things started going up there, and they eat maple seeds and helped me out quite a bit in the process of controlling the maples. This is on another project, actually one that Tom Balderson designed up on Finney Ridge, where we used a TPO roof. And after talking to Dean, I don't think TPO would be my first choice hereafter. I like the idea of maybe a torch-down roof or something that's thicker and more resilient, but this worked out really well in this particular example. TPO roofs are, as it shows in the upper right-hand corner, are just heat sealed down with something that looks like a big hair dryer type of device. Then the drainage mat is very, very important. It's like a thin egg crate with a filter membrane on the top of it. And you put that down, and so when the water goes through the soil membrane, it easily drains out the low slope, which is to the east of the house, or east of the roof towards the house, away from the left-hand picture. And that's something that's easily available. I can buy something like that from many different construction suppliers around town, commonly available. So this is Dean talked about 3 different types of roof system of getting green roof systems. And so we use the dirt, get the dirt up on the roof, the soil medium, gross medium, I think he was calling it, up to the roof, which is very lightweight by way of a conveyor belt rather than a tray system, because we couldn't afford a tray system. And so on the bottom left-hand picture is my backyard next to my garage. And that woman is Robin Rogers, who's the first director of Built Green, who happened to come by to help me use the grain shovel and shovel it onto the conveyor belt. And then on top, you can see it getting out there, and it's being moved around by way of 5-gallon buckets that work pretty good, and rakes. On the right is the example. I don't have a picture of that from my Finney Ridge project, but how we got the dirt up there, the soil medium up there, was by way of a hose and being just sprayed up there, because it was 2 stories up and it was just too darn much work to do it through a conveyor belt. And it works super efficiently. It's a little bit more costly, but I believe Pacific Topsoils has that service as one of their options, and there's other places around that companies that do that. It's not so hard to find someone to do it, and it's really just holding the hose. It doesn't really take 3 guys to hold the hose. Probably 1 guy can do it, and another supervising is probably would work pretty well. And here we are starting to water down the roof. You can see that on top of the roof, there's some raised bed areas, which get later used for certain areas. There's a boundary around it, so the soil medium doesn't fall off the roof, of which we used a rigid plastic boundary that we zip tied to the drainage mats, and we're pouring the soil all over there. And here we are. Some friends of mine who are landscapers volunteered, and we're planting the plants. And the interesting thing about sedums is that if you break them up and plant them in a little bit of soil and water them over the winter, which we did in my backyard with a small number of sedums, they grow to individual plants. Each branch will blow into an individual plant. So each one of these plants out there, we started with 7 species of sedums, 6 of which survived. I started out with like an inch-long branch from one particular plant, which gave us maybe 20 plants from the plants we originally purchased. So it saved us a lot of money and worked out really, really well. And this is Patrick Carey, who is the Guild's project director for the Green Roof Project, planting things along. I think of him as Patrick Sedum Seed, as opposed to Johnny Appleseed. And I see it's getting dark out right now, so I'm going to switch off to my phone and walk out to the roof while it's still light enough to go out there. And hopefully this is going to work. Okay, going on Zoom.
Sounds good, John. What I'll go ahead and do is stop sharing your screen so we can see your screen a little bit better.
Please. Okay, can you join audio? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
All righty. And then,
Can you still hear me?
yep, I can hear you.
Can you hear me still?
I can, yes.
Okay, very good.
Okay, very good. Okay, I'll put the video on.
Perfect. And I just transferred the audio to your phone. Awesome.
So if you look at my video, this is right outside my office door, and I have a cistern where the water from the roof goes into there. And I use that. The water comes out pretty dirty after going through a soil medium, and I use it for watering the garden sometimes. So now we're going to walk up the stairs from my office towards the house. And since originally doing this roof, I built a salmon smoke shed for my wife because she smokes incredible salmon. And so there's a way to walk right up on the roof. I don't have to go in the garage. So we're going to go up through this big leaf maple tree, sort of a hobbit-like approach to the roof. And then we have one more plank to go onto the roof itself. And here's the roof. Are you able to see this?
We are.
Oh, very good. This is the skylight that's right over my desk. This is a quick look at the whole roof as it's getting a little dark out here. This is the raised bed where Barb, my wife, just planted some plants. Looks like we got some chard, some well-established strawberries. We've got some snow peas, some kind of maybe pepper, and some lettuce as well. That's gonna be good. And she left space, she said, for planting tomatoes here that grow super well. This is actually our warmest, sunniest spot in the whole yard. And one of the advantages of growing things up here is we don't have any slugs up here, and the bunny rabbits can't get up here to nibble on things, which is really good. And then let's look at the other raised bed over here. And here we have other things. We have a squash planted. We got some more lettuce. It looks like we got another chard, and then more snow peas. And then we have some amazing ferns over here. What I found in living with this green roof, which was established in 2003, so it's 21 years old, is there's all these different things that grow up here that I didn't expect, that I didn't plan for. Let's see. Here we have, from most people will recall, these are fireweeds that grow up in the mountains, and they're volunteers. I started with 7 species of sedums up here. 6 survived. Then I bought maybe 10 more sedums and other highlight plants and added that to it. And a couple of years after this green roof was established, I did a species count of all the different plant species up here, and I came up with 77 species.
Wow.
So most of them are volunteers. Most of them came up here by way of probably bird droppings or the wind blowing seeds up here. And it's kind of self-selecting of what works well up here. We also, on a whim, over some areas that have good point loads, we got a couple hazelnut trees that are growing up here and been growing for a few years, and actually produce hazelnuts that the squirrels and the birds seem to really enjoy. There's the other hazelnut tree. And so this area here is not shaded, so it's sort of our savanna area. We never water the green roof. We water it in the first year, but we don't water the green roof except for the raised beds where we're growing things to eat. Oh, cool. You can't quite see it, but we got a bald eagle flying right by with a crow chasing it.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
That was pretty cool. And then over here, we're underneath the maple tree, and this is our moist area. So we have miner's lettuce, which is just starting out right now, which is a native edible plant, which I come and collect and put into my salads. And then we have mint growing up here, which I have no idea how that's happening or where it's coming.
And John, is that the skylight right there?
The
That
skylight.
goes, yeah, we
I
just
don't know
saw
if you can hear this, but the eagle is chirping up in a tree up
that.
above now.
Very nice.
And so I have a bathroom in my office, and this is the skylight for the bathroom, and this is the skylight over my desk. It's a long, thin office. And anything else, you guys? Feel free to put on your own mics. Anything else you'd like to see while we're up here? Otherwise, I'm going to go inside and continue on with the slideshow. Well, let me show you a close-up of some of the sedums. This is This is the current sedums that are going to be blooming shortly. They kind of get like this and sprout out like that. And the problem with the maple seeds, I'm not up to date with my purple maple seed pickings. These guys, they pick out pretty easily, and then they have this taproot. And as long it just as Dean said, if you pick them out when you're small, they're a small problem. If you let them go big, they become a really big problem. And let's see what else. And then all these mints are kind of growing here. They're kind of cool. And then let's see what else is good over here before I go down. Well, got a lot of grasses here, and they're hard to pick out. So I've been letting them go, and a goat up here on loan from somebody would be probably pretty useful for part of a day.
Sounds like you need to go on the roof, John.
I do. And anything else you'd like to see while we're up here? While we're broadcasting live from a green roof? No.
Thank you so much for sharing, John. That was awesome.
Well, I'm gonna bring you guys back downstairs.
Sounds great. Wonderful. And we'll go ahead once you're in your office, John. You can probably stop sharing your video now, and we'll transfer back the audio. Hi, John. Good to see you. We'll transfer the audio back to your laptop. Thanks so much. That was really neat to do a live broadcast of your green roof. Thanks so much, John.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to turn them, but I'll figure that out.
Sounds great.
Okay. Are we getting double feedback? Yeah,
Nope.
we are. Just a second. Maybe get rid of this. There we go.
Perfect. And then go ahead and unmute your laptop and feel free to share screen again. You are a technology whiz. Great job.
It actually works very good. I got problems with it.
There's a little bit of an echo, John. I'm wondering what that
Okay,
might be.
we're good.
Oh, great. Perfect.
You're disconnected from my phone now. So we're back here this is the back right-hand corner of the green roof that we looked at, the raised bed there with squash and other things growing. And this is Patrick putting down. You can see that green mat there, which is what in my backyard we grew the sedums in the previous winter. We're doing this planting in June, which is not really the ideal time to plant a green roof, in my opinion. It's better to do it in the early September so you don't have to water it. But we watered it during the first summer to get it established, and it worked out okay. But we planted these other sedums in November, these little sedum branches that turned into whole sedum plants that populated the entire roof over a period of time, and it worked out very well. And so Patrick was quite the organizer, and he organized a green roof workshop and tour of, I think, 11 of the 33 green roofs the Guild project was on in Seattle. And it started out with the green roof that we just toured above at my house here. We had 110 people total on the tour, and it was really quite a remarkable day. And up in the left-hand corner is Patrick up there speaking, bringing the wisdom down from the green roof to everyone. So upper right-hand corner, this is my high-tech way of watering. I had a timer, and I just had one of those back and forth sprinkler systems, and it worked really well. This roof, this lower right roof, is a roof I did with Rob Harrison on a project in Kirkland, Juanita area. That was a garage and a workshop, and a really beautiful, beautiful structure that worked out super well. Ended up being in Sunset Magazine. And then this is close up of the roof after the end of the summer, I think, of how much growth that we gotten. Not sure exactly. And then I decided to try a rock wall wildflower mix up on the raised beds, and this is what I got the next spring, which was very gratifying. And then another year, I got serious about planting the raised beds up there. And so here you can see I did really well in growing Swiss chard and kale and strawberries. And I think that's all I can see. And then here's a picture of the other raised bed, and you can see tomatoes and strawberries and cauliflower I had growing up there amazingly, and many other flowers going up there. It looks like I must have planted the wildflower mix on the roof itself as well. So every spring in March, there's a moss bloom, which I find rather beautiful when you take a close look at it. And I think it's some of the details of observing the little minutiae of the green roof is quite remarkable for me to see. And to give you scale, this is a single maple seed right here. So this is a fairly small area. And these are some sedums. I can't remember the species, but they're a native Northwest sedum that was not part of our original plan. I just planted a couple little pots of them and they grew over many places in the roof. This is in the next year or two on the roof, just doing really well. A hen and chick and some wildflowers that were blooming. And the upper right ones are a native wildflower to the Northwest, and I'm not sure about the others. This is a close-up of one of my favorite sedum photos up on the roof. These guys look really tall, but I think they're only 6 or 8 inches tall, actually. Both of these sedum species are of the 6 original ones that were planted. Here's looking at the yellow sedums blooming up there, and these are some type of daisy-like flower. I forget exactly what that was. Here is these pictures I took last Sunday. So this is real-time conditions of the roof. These are the same sedums that we just saw a picture of in great detail that I really like a lot. These are the early yellow ones blooming, the first ones blooming this season, this past Sunday. These are a particular site Posita, I don't remember the species that we originally planted that did so well on the roof that we were concerned they were going to take over the neighborhood. But they didn't, but they're still there and doing well. And then this is just more of another yellow blooming sedum. That's a very pretty one that's doing quite well, and particularly around the skylight that's above my head. And then this is also up there, just the other types of existing sedums and sedums mixed with grass as well. And this is one of my favorite pictures of it a couple of years after I'd originally planted it, of all the sedums in their prime. And I haven't really fertilized the roof. We use some compost on the raised beds for growing vegetables, but everything else it's kind of on its own. We don't water it, we don't compost it. I just weed out the most biggest offenders up there. Other than that, it's kind of it's on its own evolutionary path and is really quite different from year to year. Surprisingly, it's remarkably and changes throughout the seasons. It's really dry in the dry part once it gets to July and August, and it comes to life again in September and October in the rains. And there's a lot going on up there. So this is the pathway you just saw. I won't show you with that. And this is the view from last Sunday, looking out on it, just getting the overview. This is just to show you, Dean had mentioned the forward mortar plant that was planted in sod. I went for the North American Green Roofs Conference in Portland back in 20 years ago or 18 years ago. And these guys were there that had planted in sedums, and it was 17 acres on their Dearborn truck plant there. And it was just a remarkable thing. And they were able to offset, I believe what they told me was millions of dollars of stormwater infrastructure because of this green roof system. It was quite impressive. This is my favorite green roof that I've ever been to. And this is in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. It's the Science Museum there. And they have a place where you can walk up on it. And I believe this is a 13-acre green roof with incredible topography. And they replaced it with the native plants that had lived on the land that gotten disrupted when they built that museum there. So it's become native habitat, 13 acres of it on top of a museum. It's pretty cool. And they use the tray technique there, like Dean and Nate's use, which is a completely valid way to go, completely good way to go. This is Nate had talked about solar installations with green roofs, and if you have them up at an angle, you get water pretty well distributed in them. And really the way to do it is not really necessary to have any penetrations with them if you can do the soil or the wires going to down below outside the roof membrane. And you just really, when I talked to Jeremy of Puget Sound Power, he said, oh yeah, we just use ballast. We put about 30 pounds of them per section. And that holds them down to any type of normal wind load that we'd have in Seattle. So it's a pretty basic, simple system. And I think they integrate really nicely in a green roof if you got enough sun there and want to use them for that. And for the really large green roofs that are being built in commercial buildings, I think it's a fantastic way to go. You know, and now there's solar integration with agriculture, with growing farm food as well. And that could be done on large roofs as well as a possibility. And like Dean said, I just want to repeat that solar panels become more efficient in these conditions because the evaporation from the green roof cools the bottom of the solar panels, which makes them gets them a higher level of efficiency than they would be just sitting there heating in the sun. And it also gets you more diversity in your plants, of having more ecosystems going, because the plants would be different underneath the roof than out in the direct sunlight. This is an example of rooftop farming that I've heard of. A restaurant in New York City, read about it quite a while ago, where they had a green roof and they supplied all their veggies and their that they needed. They just grew them on their green roof right outside their door. And it's a very interesting concept. And we've had a lot of fun growing vegetables up on our green roof. Though on a steep green roof, it might not be the best idea. And then resource ideas. There's this great book I have called Green Roof, Planting Green Roofs, another one, guiding. I'm sure there's more recent ones than that. And then my bottom resource I put was just a study on carbon capture capacity of green roofs, which was of some interest, not super helpful. And then there's this organization called Green Roofs for Healthy Cities, which is probably, my recollection, it was the organization, the nonprofit that put on the North American Green Roof Conferences and hopefully still does. So a lot of really wonderful green roofs, and there's a lot that we've learned about green roofs, and Dean and his company and others who are still in the field have learned about it in the last 21 years. I've just been fortunate enough to live with one for 21 years and never have it leak and never have any disasters with it. And I've had all kinds of birds up there. There seems to be worms going up there, but no slugs, thanks goodness. The raccoons go up there from time to time, and the squirrels go up there. And that's pretty much the extent of our experience of various things up there. And I'm good for questions. I haven't looked in chat of what the questions may be.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about my roof.
Those are some fantastic photos. Thank you so much for sharing. It was really neat to learn about all the veggies you were able to grow, as well as the sedum variety. Quite a biodiverse roof. Are there any questions for John? And I'm also going to post that last link he shared in the chat momentarily, but in the resources, John, I went ahead and posted in the chat, greenroofs.com, Green Roofs for Healthy Cities, and I've got that green roof CO2 capture study right here. So I'll go ahead and get that posted shortly.
I have a question, John. You said
Sure.
something about building officials in different cities and counties. You know, you're required to have so much of a pervious surface on a lot. Have you ever worked with a city or county where they, you know, allowed you to expand the building size, but you know, as long as you did a green roof so that you still met the pervious surface?
No, I've never worked with that or dealt with that. But I'm sure we could find some people who have dealt with that. Maybe Nina knows something about that, or maybe some of your colleagues, Nina, that you work with would be familiar with that. But I've built as part of my jobs, I've done green roofs, but it was never part of the issues that we were dealing with. Or maybe Tom? Tom, do you know something about that?
I can't speak specifically to the US, but I know here in the greater Vancouver area, it is not uncommon for cities to allow greater density or use of the property space if they do something like a green roof. I know there are offsets that are allowed for that kind of thing. I believe
Very cool.
Seattle has something similar as well.
Very cool.
Thanks.
Good question, Nathan.
And Tom Balderston, I saw you unmuted. Apologies. We didn't get any audio. But if you have any information to share too, oh, I might hear something. Oh, darn, it's not quite working. I'm so sorry, Tom. If you have info to share, feel free to post it in the chat. Actually, Tom, you asked a question for Dean or John. Tom has some licorice fern that volunteered on his green roof. And it's about a 512 pitch, or sorry, yeah, 512 pitch, 21 years old, like John's. I loved having native plants come in, but these have long running rhizomes. Would you consider long running rhizomes a problem? I was curious about that too.
Licorice fern, deer fern, sword fern are all fern species that we have used in green roofs. The rhizomes of ferns don't tend to be extremely aggressive, and so typically don't pose an issue. But doing something like a fern, I would definitely recommend in at least 6 inches of growing media, ideally 8 or more, just to give them plenty of room. It also helps to ensure that they have more than enough moisture without having to overwater your green roof and potentially waste those resources.
That sounds great. I'd just like to say that I have 2 type of fern volunteers on my roof growing in about 3.5 inches of soil medium, and they don't get watered at all. So it's probably very particular to a individual circumstance, and they're probably suffering from it, but it's been their choice to grow there.
I don't know if you've seen it in your experience, but I know I've seen it quite often. A lot of species will tend to dwarf when they
Yes.
volunteer or are intentionally planted in a green roof type setting.
Yeah, good point. They are smaller than they should normally do. Hey, Dean, I have a question for you. You mentioned something that you add to the root, the soil medium, the mycorrhizomes to increase the carbon capacity. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we use mycorrhizal fungal inoculations. We actually do it in all of the plants that we grow here at the nursery. We do it right from the plug stage for our general nursery stock. With the live roof, it is added to the growing media, so it's already pre-inoculated in. The blend that we're using is a proprietary one for the mycorrhizal makeup, but it is a pretty common practice and becoming a lot more common in agriculture and horticulture in general.
And does that increase the carbon storage capacity by like 5-10% or 80%? Or could you just give us a general feel for how big a difference it makes?
Generally, you're probably going to be expecting to see about 5 to 10%. But it would really vary depending on the depth of growing media. Obviously, the greater the depth of growing media, the more mycorrhizal colony that can be there, and therefore the greater the capacity. But that would be fairly typical in any regard for carbon sequestration aspects. The growing media is going to affect that to a pretty great degree.
Thank you. Very good.
Thanks for that, Dean and John. Any more questions for our speakers tonight? Yeah. I'd just like to say thank you so much, Dean and John, for sharing your incredible presentations, as well as your knowledge of green roofs and helping us understand, for those who might not be familiar with the process and maintenance and getting started on how to look at green roofs in a whole new, potentially feasible way. So thank you so much. It seems that there is that there's a project brewing. And I will just follow up. I know, Nathan, you asked an interesting question. I jotted down your question. I might know some folks in the industry that I'll reach out to and get back to you on that one. That was a good question that I personally don't have the answer to, but curious if some of my colleagues in the engineering and policy worlds might have some answers.
Thanks.
Wonderful. Well, with that, I'll let the Zoom meeting go for a couple more minutes here. If folks have any lingering questions or discussion they want to bring up, a huge round of applause again for Dean and John. Thank you again so much for joining us tonight. Thanks to our sponsors. Thank you, Todd and John Kawaguchi, for joining us this evening to teach us more about rooftop as well as the upcoming Northwest Green Home Tour. And I hope to see you all this Saturday for the annual Northwest Green Home Tour. Should be a wonderful event. Thanks, everyone. And thanks so much, Tom. Tom in the chat shared with me that he remembered that day, John Alexander. And that Northwest EcoBuilding Guild sponsored project for 18 demonstration roofs, mostly on members' garages in 2003. And the guild all helped each other build them. That was really neat. We'll have to bring that back someday. That's a really cool event.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Nina. You do such a fantastic job facilitating these meetings, make them happen.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great learning from you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having us. It was a pleasure to participate.
Likewise. We'll be in touch, Dean. And yeah, thank you so much. I'll follow up with a link to the event recording for everyone within a week or two. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your Earth Month. Thanks all. Have a great evening. Good to see you, Tom. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.